They are connected through it. So again, I'm going to present the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Monica Grave, who is going to give an acknowledgement for this important exposition from Professor Michael Borth. Thank you very much again to Professor Porter to this important conference and have noticed about a lot of things. Chamber of Commerce has a commitment that started. We are not the ones that are going to define what we're going to do, but we're going to help to give an impulse to the entrepreneurs of creation of these clusters. And in this moment, we have different initiatives from different industries and services from the city. We also have 8 clusters actively working right now, and we hope that to the end of this year we have some more. And I would like to invite to our panel, and I think that is more important telling us that what we do in the Chamber of Commerce is that we can discuss these topics, and Professor Porter can give us some recommendations so we can strengthen this initiative of clusters in which, believe me, we are very committed. We think that there's a difference here, the networking on companies, the thinking not only that what we're going to receive at all, but instead of that, how do we improve? How do I give more competitiveness to the city, the company, and the region makes us stronger, and that's what we like to be. And the Chamber of Commerce is committed, and we would like to work with you, and the initiatives that you bring to us, all of you, are going to be included. Thank you very much. Now, with the second part, we were going to start now with the panel we have called Cluster and Shared Value Characters, which on the investigator of Desarrollo and the Minister of External Affairs. Here we have Claudia Milena Vaca, Vice President of Competitiveness and Shared Value of the Chamber of Commerce of Bogota, Leon Avitay, Manager of Texas, Juan Diego Trujillo, Manager of Business SA, Luis Fernando Jaramillo, President of Haitian Business Technology, Jorge Ramirez Vallejo, Professor of the University of Harvard and the University of Andes. So I would like to welcome Mr. Mauricio Rain, who is going to manage this part of the forum and this panel with our main guest.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here moderating and introducing this panel. It was a great pleasure to hear Professor Porter. I suppose that you all have some questions and that give you more input and insights. So if you have questions to ask, please write them down. We are going to pick some of them in order to hand them to Professor Porter so he can address those questions and the things we are going to address here in the panel. Mrs. Claudia Milena Vaca, Vice President or Deputy President of the Chamber of Commerce of Bogota Competitive Department, Juan Diego Trujillo and Leon Amitay, and Luis Fernando Jaramillo, Jorge Ramirez, which is consultant for the Chamber. And this is the way we are going to proceed. First, in Professor Porter's presentation, we hear some ideas, listen to some ideas, which at least for me are very important about our economy here in Colombia. Professor Porter emphasized on things that may be controversial. And some that are things that we as business, a community, we need to really be familiar with or get used to coexist with. We didn't have this top-down approach first. It's not from the government or authorities to the companies. Second, is that the business are responsible for the competitivity and productivity, and most important player regarding the dynamic role of the economy. And third, a company strategy may be a wide spectrum from competing with low prices or product differentiation in order to capture more value and setting higher price in order to have higher profitability. But in this process, those strategies are not really fighting each other. Having companies, some companies doing the same or complementary activities, some economic stakeholders doing things which are related. It's on the contrary something that stimulates the sector, fosters the sector, and those are key ideas for Colombia, because after 20 years we decided to start developing competitive policies as reminded by the Ministry of Commerce, Tourism and Industry. And 25 years after kicking off the economic policy, we are struggling between protection, subsidies, safeguards, and measures that constrain competition model, and different model, which is internationalization, competitivity, productivity, and efficiency. And in this struggle, we can say that Professor Porter's insights are very, very useful and appropriate. So the panel we are going to have here brings entrepreneurs from three entrepreneurs from two sectors, which plays a major role in this discussion: textile and clothing. We have the Picentex president of Picentex and Sutex president. They had to face a transition process in this business. Colombia, a closed economy, hyper-protected, with different advantage, opening the economy to start competing that are really working at lower cost, so facing China, Vietnam, Malaysia competition, and start preparing a new strategy based on value differentiation and product differentiation, value adding and product differentiation. In a regional cluster in Bogota that's facing some disadvantage. Being honest, we are far away from cost and logistics and infrastructure issues as well. And we have the Hanson Technologies president, a software company with more than 600 employees, and it is really exporting their services in the hemisphere. So new business in Colombian economy. Someone say that textiles and manufacturing are traditional business. So these three entrepreneurs belongs to clusters, belong to cluster programs fostered by the Chamber of Commerce, and we are going to try to extract their experience and to hear about the challenge they face, so how it contributes to the Chamber of Commerce program. I want to start with Claudia Milena Vaca. There's a deputy president of competitivity in the Chamber of Commerce. Just to remind in 3 minutes about two things. About which the cluster program of the chamber, what it consists of. We have many entrepreneurs that are aware of the program. Some of you are just starting to understand these new ideas, so it's good to understand which is the topic we are going to cover, and to remind about the different cluster we have, to quickly remind us about the A cluster. And it doesn't mean that if we have 8 and that we are not going to have more clusters. that we are going to close the competitive advantage of this institution. Then we are going to pass the floor to my other guest. You are going to have 3-4 minutes to clarify these concepts. Thank you, Mauricio. So that was we have the mission to work in the area of competitivity and shared value. This is a new area we are providing to not only the entrepreneurs here in Bogota, but in other sectors, to have the interconnection between the academy and the government. We use the platform in order to generate concrete projects and solutions. Every time they analyze their own reality, starting from the company analysis. But that goes beyond problem diagnostic. They're based on a long-term vision. Which are the clusters? It allows to see beyond the buildings and streets, to see the people working. Bogota is a city with diversity, with many clusters, and what the chamber start with, it's dynamic. A cluster, it's part of it, but the service attached to, it's helping to dynamic, to the structure, to set the ground with neutrality, to really serve the companies and entrepreneurs and the interactions of them with universities and the government.
By entrepreneurs, but far from the entrepreneurs, by the city, by the prosperity of the city, understanding that the topic of shared value is part of this effort. And to finish, the fundamental role of the Chamber of Commerce in Bogota is to be a facilitator and articulator. Actually, in a forum, it implies leading and sometimes implies just listening, and for entrepreneurs the verb to be heard is something that is appreciated, and it's a verb that implies fixing some differences and conflicts, and it's also a company jam to fulfill a dream, as the logo of the Chamber of Commerce says, to fulfill fundamental tasks and have a long-term vision. Let's take down to earth two concrete examples. Ms. Claudia Milenavaca, two initiatives and two specific clusters from the Chamber of Commerce, so the people that do not know the program to know what is exactly the aim of this cluster. Well, here we don't have in this forum the representatives or that we can see, and I have been part of some others, like for example tourism, business and events, or jewelry, to give two examples that can be another one solid and more strong for the city, which is the expression of an artistic identity. In the topic of jewelry, talking about one of the examples from Professor Port examples, each hotel has to make a bilingualism program as a cost and their productivity. Cluster job was to articulate the program of technical training of SENA and take it to hotels. This idea is to take SENA to companies to assist or to help the necessities can be taken from the cluster of tourism and events, but from other clusters. The jewelry topic, there are topics around it. A jeweler in Bogota cannot find gold. The table has a challenge and has to start with the Ministry of the Bank of the Nation to try to fix problems in the environment. So thank you very much, Ms. Claudia Milena. Later we're going to start with more questions. I would like to ask some questions to Mr. Ramirez Vallejo, which has been a consultant and a student, a colleague, working together with Professor Porter and responsible from his initiatives in Colombia, an old friend of mine and a consultant of the Chamber of Commerce in this cluster processes. So I would like to ask, when we talk about 8 clusters at the first side and some others emerging. Which is the criterion to identify those clusters in the first place? And in the second place, something important that Professor Porter says, the promise of value. If you don't have a promise of value differentiated at an entrepreneurial level, what I assure you, at an individual and a cluster and regional level, we're screwed in a competitive world, and not only in the clusters but in general. So thank you, Mauricio. And yes, the first exercise we made was establishing prioritization criterions on clusters that we were going to select, and those criteria is this important relative importance of the region of Bogota. How important is the generation of employment in these sectors? Certain criteria and economic variables, and there were some others that were very important. Mostly starting with this program of the Chamber of Commerce, and is the historical legacy on the Chamber of Commerce in these sectors. How much work was performed in this Chamber of Commerce with all of them? And I understand that. And the fundamental criteria is the desire, the willing to take part of the clusters and these initiatives of developing cluster. I might need to differentiate theoretically the clusters, and the difference is the following. Clusters exist, as expressed by Professor Porter, are the agglomeration of companies and stakeholders in Bogota and in the region, and there are two options. You allow the cluster to evolve in a normal way, or you start an initiative or a collaboration process from all the stakeholders, uh, and this is it on? Well, ready. Well, I was saying that there are two possibilities on leaving it to evolve as it has happened in the past, or start an initiative, a collaboration process from all the stakeholders, that is, development initiatives from the clusters that the Chamber of Commerce is working on. And we have these different criteria, prioritizing mostly the desires, willing of stakeholders to take part of these initiatives, and mostly to find champions. Champions are the ones that are joining me in this panel. They're entrepreneurial leaders, flesh and blood, that want to start these initiatives. And something that characterizes initiatives from the Chamber of Commerce of Bogota, the leadership of them come from the private sector, and that is mostly from a reason, because it's easier to pass governmental periods if it's led by the private sector than if it's led by the government. The government should be part of the initiative, but mostly the private sector. And answering the second question is related to the vision and the proposal of value of the cluster. So we did it with a methodology, modular methodology, to start this initiatives of development of the cluster, and the proposal value is not different from the competitive identity of the cluster given its location, its historical legacy, its competitive advantages in current future, and not only from the stakeholders of the cluster, but the stakeholders that would like to be part of the cluster, visit it, and be part of the cluster as companies, and mostly for the government, so the government will know what kind of public policies should be adjusted to make the competitive cluster. And we made this with all these stakeholders, and we have seen if it was easy or difficult to achieve a consensus, but actually it was easy. Curiously, 2 or 3 sessions discussing about this vision of cluster, we got to the 8 clusters to have a proposal of value very well defined. And we cannot say that it was written on stone. It was a proposal value that we, of course, we're going to adjust, and the mean that we're going to meet this sector, and we're going to move forward in the strategies of the cluster. And as you say, this doesn't work if it's not supported and taken by entrepreneurs that you call champions. So we're going to start with champions. So many people from the auditorium will say it is interesting. There are some things that help me. There's a paradigm that is presented by Professor Porter. But me as entrepreneur, what can I obtain? What is the difference that I can have and understand and participate in this type of initiatives? So we're going to start with the champions, and we're going to start with one of the entrepreneurs that has lived this transformation of the sector. That was a radical transformation in the sectors from textile and confection sector. And it is not a role to be an entrepreneur of the sector, but it's part of the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and member of the cluster of textiles and confections that is promoted by the Chamber. Mr. Juan Diego Trujillo, President of Peace and Text, and I would like to ask the obvious thing in this transformation, the rigor on the difficulties that you have had that changed the way of compete and how to compete, what type of necessities have been present that you find an initiative of clusters can help to solve. Thank you, Mauricio. We have sound for this microphone. Thank you, Mauricio. I don't know if, well, a friend of mine told me to talk from the heart. So I'm going to do that. When you see news from sector programs, what we can see, some sewing machines. This is a sector that was shown at a crisis sector since I remember. It is something that opportunities and challenges as well from transforming the worldwide economy become a huge thing that cannot be overcome, and that is the opportunity generated in the cluster. And Professor Portes told us that he's very interested in Colombia, despite what is happening here, continues to make company despite the situation in Colombia. The people here to be our leaders all the time in the initiatives they start. And for a company as Peace and Text that is part of a sector from textiles, confection, and we present some challenges, well, a lot of financial challenges, market challenges, defining strategies challenges, and I like to talk about business strategies, and the chance of the cluster is to consolidate a group of initiatives that allow the sector to move on the same way. In the characteristics of this country, and especially from our sector, generated a critical situation, the lack of trust. We started it in a non-trustable environment from the institutions, for example, from the people around us, from the people governing us, and the entrepreneurs, and the challenges from our company and our companies have. And I talk about the Chamber of Commerce, member of the board of directors. The challenge of generate trust is one of the biggest, and in the best way we're moving on through the cluster of the Chamber of Commerce that support us. We started without believing in ourselves, without believing in our neighbor, as Dr. Porter said, competing one against the other. And thanks to this opportunity, we are looking at our faces and seeing our real dimension and seeing the opportunities we have to achieve the markets we can get. In the same sense, the other company represented here in the as textile sector, Sutex, And later I'm going to continue with the questions, and we're going to deepen into important things that we're going to see the first round of the basics. What is the necessity, concrete necessity, the environment that is so complex on the transition on the text company? What is the necessity that is satisfied of each channel through the initiative of a cluster? And I would like to ask the manager of Sutex, Leon Amitai, to tell us about his experience from his heart. Well, I believe. No. Well, I think that it is a fact that what Mr. Juan Diego was saying, that it has been a sector that was historically a problem sector. We have been cataloged between in the banking, for example, as a sector that is not very good, high risk sector. The challenges that we have had in the past years are very big, and I believe that we have had the chance to live in the past 15 years like a roller coaster of fusions on the sectors or mergers on the sectors. The confection sector was we exported a lot of confection to the United States and Europe, and that with the founding of quotas in 2004 and 2005, and it stopped, and that was the party ending, and many of the confection migrated to China and other countries in Asia. Even we thought that almost the sector was going to be a complete failure, and we were going to lose it, as happened in other countries as Chile. And in Chile there is no confection at all. So however, we have seen many changes, that many companies, I had the chance to go a few years ago to visit Sara facilities in La Coruña, and that generated a change of thinking about the sector. And the question that we had to make to the companies, what is the percentage of production you have in China? And then when you have the memories, and you have the 50% of our production comes from Spain and Portugal, and that was a big surprise for me. And I think that it wouldn't happen for 2 years. And there is the 30% that we produced in countries close to Spain, Morocco, Poland, and any other countries nearby, and just the 30% we worked in China, because a company as you are part of this section. So they told us that the speed of the market and logistics is the most important for them, and it is repeated by the owner of Top Show and many chains of confection chains that are very successful at a worldwide level. And we come back here, and at the same time we talked with Jorge about the possibility of working in the same cluster. We started to see that the cluster would give a solution, and the solutions that we have achieved and seen is working together with SENA to see the education programs regarding the textile and confection programs they have to be according with the necessities of entrepreneurs. If we are in a cluster environment and we have access to employees that are trained, that is going to be an earning for us. And additionally, in knowing that the confection sector has no access or unlimited access to credit, and in the best case low access with credit with not good conditions, we're working together with entities such as Pro-Export, and to understand that is to understand the good things of that the credits can give and transmit that to the confection sector. And confectioners historically have worked in a lonely way, working in their own company, and didn't have knowledge of the things that they can access in the market. So that is another thing that is very important for us. And another solution is talking with entities such as Efficient Purchasing Colombia or Colombia Compra Eficiente, to transmit the necessity that if they change the solution of purchase, uniform purchase of the state to the first semesters when the confection sector has lower charge, and they could alleviate a lot the charges and the work. In the second semester, the confection plants in the first sector they are empty and to compensate the necessities of a government. So thank you, Leon. Before changing the sector and see another radical version of the same topic and the same problem, I would like to talk about something from the interventions from Juan Diego and Leon. Some of the things they have said can be managed through an agremiation and to interact with SENA and to seek for a stationality different from the purchases of the state and initiatives to benefit everyone. How, from the perspective of all of you, how is the role of the something fundamental in the cluster, which is regional proximity? And we have talked about some clusters developed in Bogota, not developed some parts in Medellin and the coffee axis in Bucaramanga, that there are many big companies. What is the regional proximity role or challenges that give us in the future? Thank you. The question is very interesting regarding that I am still from Medellin, and when you know that Medellin has led the sector in the country, talking about clusters in Medellin was more natural. It was easier in there because they have worked in the same similar initiatives. Bogota region has a capacity and the power to start in the market, and is fundamental in many abilities skills that have been developed in adverse conditions of its location in the same market. So the possibility of Bogota as region as producer of clothes is very big, and it generates some challenges that we are fixing at a cluster level, understanding that the sector has multiple parts in which the agremiations have a partial vision. The cluster gives a general vision, and for that reason we can have comprehensive solutions. That's the impact from the cluster that is not contraproducing, complementary to the agremiation activity. So in this regard, regional proximity is something that is very important from the concept of cluster. How can we make the difference? One of the topics that we have talked about in the cluster work in clothes in the Chamber of Commerce is exactly analyzing. The first thing is that everybody thinks is how we're going to export and organize the cluster and make to have a big production capacity to export. Fortunately or unfortunately, in Colombia we know that the topic of roads it's very scarce, and coming from ports to here and coming and going from here to the ports is very costly. And the fact that being in Bogota, which is the biggest market from Colombia, makes us think that on one side, yes, let's organize ourselves to export, and let's see if we are 2,000 or $3,000 from a container. It means that we have competitive advantages against imported products. So why don't we think that we are part of a most important market in Colombia with a big capacity and acquisition capacity, and why don't we don't think to give away our market and work together to board the local product and without not knowing the topics of exporting in other countries in other regions. So we cannot think in the main market we have in Bogota that is split by big distances and costs from other markets that we can receive product. The important topic here is what from others is an advantage, from others is a disadvantage. Bogota is 2,600 meters closer to the stars, but and it is not something related to politics. We are above the sea level and very far away from coasts. Physical distance, not only physical distance, but um, internationalization process, and that is very attractive for the competence and something important for the infrastructure and conventions and for the generation is a step that is going to the competitive part is part of the management and the future and that should be analyzed in the cluster. So we're not discovering boiling water, but you have analyzed that, of course. But we can see a different vision regarding an industry of so-called new, but new in their technological character, an industry that is part of the services industry, not represented by Mr. Luis Fernando Jaramillo, which is part of the Hanson Business Technologies, which is a software producer company that has offered services for 3 decades or so on to companies in the entire hemisphere, in Colombia, Latin America, and the United States. And he's part of a cluster from software, of course. The basic question originally at total focus for a different company or business. What are the challenges that you have faced, and how an initiative of clusters do you think is going to help us to solve it, or help you to solve it? Well, the big challenges and from us are challenges that a society faces, and these are focused on two things: employment and education, human talent and knowledge. Those are the two important focuses on the companies nowadays in Bogota. It's not something only in Colombia and Latin America, but at a worldwide level. The topic of systems engineers or people trained in this industry, there is a deficit here, and in every year you see that this deficit increased. To give you some numbers, in Bogota we need about 12,000 engineers, and we are producing just 5,000 engineers. So I clarify something: the TICS is not an industry of systems engineer. It's something fundamental, but the IT industry is a sector of people trained professionally with a good knowledge, a permanent knowledge process and processes. What I believe that is one of the important challenges in our industries is to find people with more preparation, and the people who are prepared go prepared for the necessities of the market. So we're generating employment in young people. People from this industry are very young. One of the biggest unemployment is young people, or are young people. And for Colombia and Bogota, what we're doing with the Chamber of Commerce with this cluster is generating employment for the youngest people, the people that is difficult to be part of the labor market, and additionally with a fundamental component. Talking against the other industries, that is fundamental, is a better employment. When we come take a business manager or a mathematician or an electronic or electric engineer, not to talk about systems engineer, we're including to the labor market better prepared people. And if you're including this company to export to or take it to a different region in Colombia, we're including an industry that is less contaminant somehow, a cleaner industry, let's say. And Bogota has many alternatives about the cluster of technology and for different sectors, because the sector of technology, we don't produce it only for ourselves or technology companies, but we are transversal to any sector actually. And if any sector wants to be competitive, for sure we are going to be present in that value of change, as the professor says. There are two important things of this technology sector that at the first view any person will suggest the territory or the region is not a matter. So one is a service, and for that reason it travels in different ways than good. And talking about high technology, the way of traveling through the telecommunications or whatever makes it easier to find some gaps than making a road and some other things. How is the concept of cluster in an industry or in a sector? Any person would say it takes out the space of territory. The cluster in the first, and we have to be conscious that in Bogota is difficult. Takes us to the entrepreneurs, and it takes us close to establish these practices of offering a service and developing a software and helping the technological development in any way. Not only companies in Bogota, but at a national or international level. But I think that the chamber has been fundamental in the topic that I would like to talk about, to be close to important ministries. The Ministry of ICTs, the Ministry of Education is important or key in this situation. The SENA is important or key in this. The majors, the town hall is important to be present in this cluster. And the Chamber of Commerce has been fundamental to glue these entities that give us so many services. And from the cluster now, as a group of companies that make activities in Bogota at international level, at even that we don't know, it helps us to take up these results and it's good experiences that we have had internationally. And the Chamber of Commerce is from the entrepreneurs to glue us and grow as entrepreneurs. And talking about technology, we can start working with a worker in the company, and we can be talking with a future entrepreneur and another person. And to the company, we have had many employments. All the partners from our company, they were all employments, and it can be replied to everyone. So that is a product we are giving to the young people of the country. So there is a good alternative in business, and that is very good. Another thing that we have achieved from the cluster, there are micro roads of the human talent that through the chamber allows us to be the facilitator. We have employment roads, and the technology company is difficult for a company as ours, it's difficult to make this round of employment. So in Colombia there is no specialized careers, for example, in marketing and sales or management of companies of technology. Through the Chamber of Commerce University or through the entities, we have achieved that this type of diploma degrees, we can have this type of education for people that want to create companies about the topic of technology. And we have that important support from the cluster, strengthening us as entrepreneurs, and we strengthen alternatives of innovation. And additionally, the Chamber of Commerce has supported us in many ways about this. Thank you very much. In a moment, I am going to ask the three entrepreneurs about other main concept, talking about the shared value, because you have explored it or not explored it, but suggesting things. And immediately you stick to things. A country full of necessities, as the case of many other countries, that the professor says that we have an opportunity of business for a win-win situation for the country and entrepreneurs. And we can open some ideas for entrepreneurs, and you have had minutes to think and initiatives and good things. And while you think about that, I would like to ask Claudia Milena or Jorge something that some of you have asked yourselves. This program is recent, is old, it's in mature age. What is expected to happen later? If we have to compare this program with a person, it is in its childhood. What are the challenges? What is expected from these people that are not part of these 8 clusters tomorrow? There is something that will work for me? Yes. Actually, the program started 2 years ago with a very good thinking from entrepreneurs, and I believe that the president, Miss Monica Egreff, has given us the line to move forward with this business, with this cluster. We don't owe to a small group of entrepreneurs. The city has 330,000 companies with different services, and the Chamber of Commerce gives the service to connect them, to dynamize this, and it gives the closing to the government and entrepreneurs what they think is can be useful. Can be useful for the government as well. That the government wants to listen to this entrepreneurial vision and the vision to the future. And we sum up all these reasons. We can expect that is that the program can be expanded, so the country having the Chamber of Commerce as support to this dynamization of clusters. So we are in a process, a childhood process now. That was very nice. The Chamber of Commerce has a lot of equipment or first level or team or first level to help us in this detationality in the Chamber of Commerce, and that doesn't give us a lot of fear to grow. So because it is a task that is not joined by this the good the neutrality and the solvency of a Chamber of Commerce as the one we have in Bogota. In the same regard, Jorge asked collaborator of Professor Port that you have seen initiatives around the world and you have participated of many of them. So in this adolescents and childhood adolescents of this program, we can see what are the big dilemmas. We have seen this thing in other countries. There can be a bottlenecks. How these initiatives can grow. And well, the big challenge of these initiatives of cluster development is sustainability. Is that is what we have to be guided to finally maintain what we call the momentum, the dynamics, the energy within the initiatives. And maintaining that momentum is not easy. It implies mostly leadership, to leaders in the cluster that want to take the cluster to the future, up to the future, and a common language, methodologies. And we have no common language to talk about competitiveness. Everyone talks about everything, and we cannot move forward on the topic of competitiveness. And in that momentum demands results, and the initiative develops the clusters. We cannot show results if if we don't show results. The participants go away and don't take more part of this initiative. With the Chamber of Commerce, we have balancing early earnings and achieving results in the short term without um, taking out these goals at a long or medium term. And it is a challenge that is not there is not nothing guaranteed. It is an exercise and an effort from every day from all the stakeholders that we have to protect the initiative, and these initiatives are very valuable. And taking the question you made to the panel, it is an initiative that takes advantage of localization. What is of the big things approximating competitivity, and it's the competitiveness topic is being treated from the national part, not taking into account the local part, the subnational part. And Professor Portet says so, that there are the real assets and competitive disadvantages with which you have to work with. And this development of cluster, we have to attack these disadvantages. For example, in the topic of education and the human talent, that is a recurrent topic about, among others, in Colombia, the non-existence of the human talent from the country. That problem cannot be treated by cutting it with the same thing with the country. It has to be taken or treated cluster by cluster, location by location, because it has all the clusters particular problem on the necessities of that human talent and the curriculum that has to be fitted with the universities, with the work with other stakeholders and some other things. So we have a program, as Claudia Milena says, that is starting. It is showing results, and the momentum We recently made an inquiry, and most of the 90% of the initiative participants are happy, and that is the spectacular indicator from the dynamism from these initiatives, and the challenge is to move forward with these initiatives and following the recommendations that you mentioned.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Jair Ramirez. In order to really be aligned with the agenda, we are going to wrap up this with personal reflection around shared value. And maybe if you want to invite the audience with the phrase regarding these programs, feel free to do it. Mr. Juan Diego, Professor Porter was saying something that I love, I really like. So we all together are going to make entrepreneurs the heroes of society. So it brings illusion and hope and commitment. We have a group of entrepreneurs. We have members of the steering committee of the Chamber of Commerce that being heroes somehow. And we have Entrega, and they give their work for free. They generously help other entrepreneurs to move forward. So the Heroes program assumed the challenge to engage with the cluster program, and the results are going to blow our minds. So when it comes to shared value, I think about something I started as a marketing initiative. Listening to Professor Porter, I want to invite you, Leon. We have some members of the manufacturing areas to use recycling material to manufacture garments and clothing. We have a company already manufacturing yarns, so you can produce and sell the clothing, the garment. So which is going to the impact using those plastic balance, saving and 80% of the energy just with the yarn. So this is something aligned with the things Professor Porter shared with us. What's your final thought here regarding shared value? What do you want to share with your colleagues? Professor Porter lead us to think when it comes to shared value, and it's really inspiring what he said, and just not to think only to look for more profitability in a company or to make our shareholder richer. It's to really impact on a social transformation with the people that works in this environment, and a transformation regarding the whole supply chain and the value chain. So we develop an initiative which is very interesting now. We are not looking for profitability, but the shared value is there, of course, and it's about art, and it really makes us feel satisfied. So in our facilities, we have opened the doors for an art collection, which allow us to really gather the different stakeholders of the company. We have invited secretaries, managers, and the staff in general to understand the contemporary art, to get involved in different museum exhibitions. Many people there were never in a museum before because they didn't have the sense of belonging, but nowadays they feel proud and they invite their families, starting this interaction with art. And we have no profit interest in this, but the dynamic it's growing, and we have visitors from foreign countries just to see how we were surrounded by art. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we received Francesco Moratti, which is a sociologist and anthropologist, working regarding conscient forecasting or futurology, and which are the main motivation which drive consumption. When he got to the facilities, he said, Leon, do you have an inspirational driver that you can have in a fashion company? You should profit. And it's now turning into a topic that we need to treat in more detail, not only to share with other people, but to look the way we can impact on a social transformation. Mr. Jaramillo, which is your final thought? For us as a cluster, we have several things to share. First of all, we need to allow people to know the different company men, business men and women to know about a cluster, and to be able to differentiate the value proposal, the value proposition we can use in order to supply those products and services at national and international level. We are far away from the coast, and Bogota still have a problem regarding languages, but we can provide service from here, so we can help small business and companies or engineers, doctors, designers, different businesses that can start exporting services from Bogota. So the IT cluster, it's a key driver for this purpose. So we create clean jobs, access to jobs to the youngster. Thanks a lot, Mr. Jaramillo. Thank you for the three entrepreneurs, Mrs. Claudia Milena Baca, Mr. Ramirez Vallejo, for these panels that really help us to land those ideas shared by Professor Porters and putting into the context of Bogota and Cundinamarca. Professor Porter is going to let you know his insights about this global vision, about the different cluster initiative and shared value, and he is going to answer to some questions that you just write on. We are going to have 15-minute breaks. We are going to have a 15-minute breaks, and then we are going to invite Professor Portes to the final wrap-up. Thank you.